Students, welcome again. Welcome again. Today, I'm going to discuss about certain chapters like theory of income and employment. That's a very vital chapter, fully conceptual chapter, graphical chapter, to some extent mathematical. So, theory of income and employment. I would give some tips and advices on this chapter. Money and inflation, and forms of markets. So, firstly, let me start with theory of income and employment. Firstly, you will start with components of aggregate demand. What are the components of aggregate demand? In the past, in ISC, question came, what are the components of aggregate demand? Sorry. If this question comes, then you have to write components of aggregate demand are consumption, investment, government expenditure, and net exports. C, I, G, and X minus N. Please don't write the components of aggregate demand are consumption and investment. See, that is in a shortened form, simplified form. Actually, aggregate demand is composed of aggregate demand according to Keynes, the man who made this theory. According to John Maynard Keynes, aggregate demand consists of the components of aggregate demand are consumption, C, investment, I, government expenditure, G, and X minus N, that is net exports. So this is the first one that you need to know. Then learn the details about the consumption, autonomous consumption. What is autonomous consumption? That constant part of the consumption which every person has, which remains constant. Even if the income is zero, that constant part of the consumption is there. That is autonomous consumption. Then you have the induced consumption. So autonomous consumption, induced consumption depends on income. It varies directly with income. So you can remember the equation for consumption. C is equal to A plus BY or A plus CY, whatever you say. So now based on this, the graph for consumption function. The graph for consumption function. That's very important to remember or to visualize the graph for consumption function. Now, related to consumption, try to remember APC, MPC. The formula APC is equal to C by Y. MPC is equal to delta C by delta Y. And simple numerical sum can be given on the basis of APC and MPC. Income and consumption, the values are given. You need to find out APC and MPC. I think you can. It's very easy to find out. APC is equal to C by Y, and when you are finding out MPC, it's change in the consumption, expenditure, divided by change in income. Here one thing, the first value of MPC we cannot find out in the question's answer, because when it's given, suppose rupees 1000 is the income and 600 is the consumption expenditure. Are we given in the data the previous level of income and the previous level of consumption expenditure? We are not given. So as we are not given, how can we find out the first initial MPC, that is change in the consumption, how much the change in the consumption, how much the change in income? We don't know. So we can't find out the first value of MPC. Anyway, that's regarding MPC and APC, which is very important. Now you come to investment. Investment also, according to Keynes, can be of two types: planned or autonomous investment, which is the horizontal straight line parallel to x-axis, because Keynes assumes that this planned investment is autonomous, it's constant. It is constant. And also the induced investment or non-planned investment, which is induced by income, which is quite uncertain. And yes, that part of that type of investment vary directly with income. If income increases, if income comes more, then that induced consumption will be more. But Keynes has considered in the simplified theory only the first type of investment, that is planned investment, which is autonomous. So you have got the details about consumption and the details about investment. Then derivation of the aggregate demand curve. So, aggregate demand is equal to C plus I. So aggregate demand curve will be parallel to the C curve, and the gap is constant. The gap between C plus I and the C curve is constant because that is I. That is why it's parallel. That is why aggregate demand curve is parallel to C curve, parallel to the consumption curve. Okay. Now, after deriving the aggregate demand curve, then you focus on aggregate supply. Aggregate supply, logically, by economics logic, you can understand that aggregate supply is equal to income. Aggregate supply is equal to national income, because total supply of all goods and services produced and supplied in the whole economy, if we take the money value of that, then that is actually basically the income earned by all the people in the country. So aggregate supply is equal to income. Now when we make the graphical presentation of this, in the graph it will be an upward sloping straight line making an angle of 45 degree with the x-axis. Remember to write there 45 degree. So aggregate supply is equal to income, and that is an upward sloping straight line, like a diagonal it goes, and it makes an angle of 45 degree with the x-axis. So that is aggregate supply. Then derivation of the equilibrium level of income and employment, income, output and employment, by using aggregate demand, aggregate supply approach. So when the aggregate demand curve and the aggregate supply curve, they are cutting each other, they are intersecting each other, then at that point of intersection, they are equal. That means that is the equilibrium point. Now when you drop the vertical line from that equilibrium point, you get the equilibrium level of income. And according to Keynes, that equilibrium level of income is considered as full employment level of income. What is full employment? That can be a question also. See, full employment is a situation when all the labor resources of the country, all the labor resources who are willing to work at the prevailing wage rate are all employed. Nobody is unemployed. That is full employment. Okay, now we come to the savings function. Savings is income minus consumption expenditure. So when you derive the savings curve starts from the negative portion below the x-axis, because income curve you are drawing, that is what? Aggregate supply curve in the graph. Consumption curve you draw, then that is upward sloping flatter straight line starting from a point above the origin, not the origin. Now from these two, income minus consumption, you get savings. So initially income is less than consumption, that is why saving is negative. Then there's a point where income is equal to consumption expenditure, y is equal to c, and their saving is zero. Their saving is zero. So at that point, saving is zero means saving curve will cut, will intersect, will touch, will meet, will cross, will intersect the x-axis where saving is zero. After that, we find when income is greater than consumption, then saving becomes positive. So savings curve starts from the negative portion of the y-axis below the x-axis. It slopes upward, it goes up, and then it cuts, it intersects the x-axis where it is zero, and after that it goes above the x-axis. That means savings becomes positive. Now related to savings function, we have two concepts very much like that APC and MPC. Here we have APS and MPS, average propensity to save and marginal propensity to save. Now similar formula, APS is equal to S by Y and MPS is equal to delta S by delta Y. So you have learned APC and MPC. Now you are learning APS and MPS. There's a relationship which you know how to derive. Relationship between APC and APS. What is the relationship? APC plus APS equal to 1. Please study the relationship, how you derive it. It's very easy. Start from y is equal to c plus s, then you get that. Another relationship between MPC and MPS. Here the similar relationship. The relationship between MPC and MPS is what? MPC plus MPS is equal to 1. So these also are probable questions. Establishing the relationship between APC and APS, MPC and MPS. Now after this, you have the saving investment approach. The saving investment approach, determination of equilibrium level of income and employment, income, output and employment by using saving investment approach. This is a very favorite topic of the council. This is a very probable topic also this year, saving investment approach. Here you have to show in the graph savings function, the savings functions curve, investment functions curve. investment curve, that is the horizontal straight line parallel to the x-axis, and the savings curve. Now, that point at which saving is equal to investment, that is the equilibrium point. That means savings curve intersects the investment curve. That is the equilibrium point. And drop the vertical line on the x-axis, that will be the equilibrium level of income, which is again the full employment level of income. Actually, by this process, by this method, by this way, when you are determining the equilibrium level of income, the same level of income is determined by the aggregate demand, aggregate supply approach. Same thing. Now we come to the investment multiplier. In case of investment multiplier, learn firstly the formula, the meaning. That means by how many times the increase in investment is to be multiplied so as to get the increase in income. So the formula for investment multiplier is delta Y by delta I. Increase in income divided by increase in investment. Now also learn stepwise, logically, by proper understanding, learn the derivation, how we derive investment multiplier's formula. Investment multiplier delta Y by delta I, that is K, we denote investment multiplier by K. K is equal to delta Y by delta I is equal to 1 by 1 minus MPC. 1 by 1 minus MPC, marginal propensity to save. And as we know, MPC plus MPS equal to 1, so we can write investment multiplier is equal to 1 by MPS. So this is very, very important. Numerical sums are often given based on this. That means delta Y by delta I is equal to 1 by 1 minus MPC is equal to 1 by MPS, and that is investment multiplier formula. This is very, very important. Okay, investment multiplier done. Now at the end of this chapter, you have the two situations. One is deficient demand situation and the other one is excess demand situation. When there is excess demand, it leads to inflation. So the gap between aggregate demand and aggregate supply in the graph, in terms of the graph, that is actually the inflationary gap, and that leads to inflation. Then please study in relation to this the government measures which can be adopted, by the government to tackle this situation and to reduce that inflationary gap and to reduce the inflation. In a similar way, when there is deficient demand or excess supply, and the gap between aggregate supply and aggregate demand, because aggregate demand becomes less than the aggregate demand supply. Aggregate demand becomes less than the aggregate supply. And there is deficient demand, shortage of demand is less. So that will lead to deflationary gap. And when there is deflationary gap, it will lead to deflation. Prices will be falling continuously. This is also not good for the economy, and therefore the government has to come forward to take certain measures and steps how to reduce that deflationary gap, how to reduce the deflation. So that's it. This is about the whole chapter. So if you study all these concepts in a proper way, I don't think any question will be difficult for you. I've told you about everything that you need to know. If you know all these concepts right from the beginning till the end, there cannot be any question which should be considered as high difficulty level questions. You can answer every question. By the way, in case of investment multiplier, along with this learning how to solve the numerical sum, the formula, the meaning, definition, please learn the mechanism of investment multiplier with a numerical example. With a numerical example, learn the mechanism, the process of investment multiplier. Yes, in the past in ISC the question came. Explain the mechanism of investment multiplier. Okay, now we come to money and inflation. In the chapter of money, firstly, this is a very, very easy chapter. Definition of money. Then the different types of money, like fiat money, token money, legal tender, that is of two types. Limited legal tender, unlimited legal tender. See, very easy concepts these are. Learn these concepts, know the meaning, also the definitions. Then you have functions of money. All the functions, don't skip anything, all the functions. primary functions, secondary functions, contingent functions of money, all. Primary functions, 2 primary functions, 3 secondary functions, and 4 contingent functions. Learn properly. By proper understanding, any question from these functions can come, because this is very important. And then the measures of money supply. Measures of money supply, M1, M2, M3, M4. The equations. Learn the equations, and then that will be enough. Because if you know the equations of M1, M2, M3, M4, then it will be very, very easy for you, because just in the form of equations you need to learn. Nothing else. In the form of equations. M1 is what, M2 is what, M3 is what, and M4 is what. Now, along with this M1, M2, M3, M4, also what is high-powered money? What is high-powered money? This question came in the past. What is high-powered money? That is the central bank money, the money which is issued by the central bank of the country, which is circulated in the whole country, consisting of all currency notes and coins. So that is everything regarding money, that part, money, in the chapter of money. In inflation, that's easier because it is much shorter. In inflation, firstly, definition of inflation. Now, in any chapter, when you are studying the definition, please stick to the words of the definition. Don't deviate from the words, because definition means exact word-to-word definition. That is your learning skill. The learning skill will help you to remember the exact words. Now, inflation, after that, demand pull inflation, cost push inflation. Now, when you are learning the definition, the meaning of demand pull inflation, you are learning like you are writing demand pull inflation occurs because of excess demand. That is when aggregate demand for goods and services in the whole economy exceeds aggregate supply of total goods and services supplied in the whole economy. Please, at the end of this answer, write at full employment. If this part, at full employment, is not written in the answer, maybe marks will be reduced. So this is very vital to write that at full employment. Then we'll learn about cost push inflation. What happens when cost push inflation occurs? Either the wages which are claimed by the laborers, that gets increased, the wages, and because of that, cost of production increases. To make up for the profit, the producers, they raise the prices. They continuously raise the prices, and that leads to inflation, which is the root cause behind this kind of inflation is rise in the cost of production, and that is why we say this is cost push inflation. The cost push inflation can be also because of the intention of getting more profits by the entrepreneur himself, and so we say either it's wage push inflation or profit push inflation. Anyway, so these are the demand pull inflation, cost push inflation. And then you have creeping, walking, running, galloping inflation. These are based on the type. These types are based on the rates of inflation. 2 to 3% per annum, creeping, then 3 to 6 or 10% per annum, that is walking, in this way. Just the rates of the inflation and the names. So that's about money and inflation. Now I come to forms of market. This chapter is one of the easiest chapters in the whole syllabus. Believe me, it's one of the easiest chapters in the whole syllabus. Forms of market, firstly, the basic thing is for all the types of market, that is the broad types, perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly. For all these different types, learn all the features. Don't skip anything. Learn all the features with proper understanding into the depth. Because questions are often asked from within the point, within the feature. So don't study superfluously. Upar se kuch nahi hoga. You have to go into the depth. You have to go into the depth. So all the features of all the types of markets. Now, what type of questions are asked from within? Like, why do perfect competition firms earn normal profit, only normal profit in the long run? This can be a question. Then the answer, the very simple answer is, all perfect competition firms in the long run earn only normal profit because of free entry and free exit. That's it. If you write this, enough. Now, if you need to explain more, then you have to. But if it's a 1 mark question or 2 marks question, then this is enough. Then, why is P equal to AR equal to MR under perfect competition? The answer is price remains constant. Then, under which type of markets, in which type of markets selling costs are required? Monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Again, in which type of markets selling costs are not required? Selling costs are not required in perfect competition and monopoly. And selling costs are required in monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Then what is product differentiation? You know the concept of product differentiation, because maybe a case study can be given or a statement can be given where it's an example of product differentiation, like toothpaste or something like that. And then you're asked which process is being indicated. Like if you take suppose a question that I went to Spencer's and there I found about 6 to 7 brands of potato chips being sold there. 6 to 7 brands with different flavors in different packets, those are available. And the prices are also similar but not same. The companies, the look of the packets are also similar but not the same. They're looking different. Then which process is being indicated in this statement? What is the process? Product differentiation. In which type of market is this applicable? This is applicable in monopolistic competition or in oligopoly. And then you will be asked to explain any 2 features or any 3 features of that type of market. So questions can be like this. So whenever you study any particular type of markets features, then learn all. Learn all the features into the depth. Go into the depth. Don't just study superfluously. So in the chapter of forms of market, these are the main things. Okay. Some short questions, like some types are there where you don't have full-fledged long answers, like what is monopsony? What is monopsony is a probable question. Monopsony is a market in which some specialized products are sold and there's only one buyer. There's only one buyer of a specialized product. That is monopsony. So this kind of question, what is pure competition? In pure competition, there are only 3 features: large number of buyers and sellers, homogeneous products, and free entry and free exit. So these can be also short questions because these topics are only short. So that's about forms of market. This chapter, forms of market, unless you study this chapter properly, you can't go into revenue and cost, because when you are going into the chapter revenue, when you are studying the chapter revenue, you need to have a sound knowledge of forms of market. Anyway, today I have discussed and given you certain tips and advices. In a nutshell, I've tried to make a summary of the chapters: theory of income and employment, money and inflation, and also forms of market. Thank you.